Welcome back to another video. And in this video, I decided not to show myself, so all of you just gonna hear me talk. So you ain't gonna see me in this video, you just gonna hear my voice. Okay, enough of that. Okay, in this video is titled, "If the entire US state of Texas moved to Australia, what would things be like? Would the two cultures get along well?" Well, this is going to be the title of this video, but it's a title of a post that I found on Quota that interested me. So I decided to read this and give my thoughts on it. Okay, and here it is. If the entire US state of Texas moved to Australia, what would things be like? Would the two cultures get along well? And I'm just going to read one post on this post from an American, someone who is from Texas. And his name is Scott Oliver. And he's titled as a US immigrant to Australia. And here's his answer on this. I'm on my smartphone, and here it is. Here's his answer to this question and the title to this video. "I was born and raised in Texas, but now I'm an Australian. Here's what I think. Disclaimer: there are 30 million Texans and 20 million Australians, and making generalizations about 50 billion people is guaranteed to make people tell me I'm wrong. Still, let's work with the stereotypes. Most Texans would not be happy in Australia. Most Texans would not be happy in Australia. Guns. Texans consider owning guns their God-given obligation to society. Aussies don't hate guns necessarily. They just don't see the reasons for everyone to have so many." Okay, I'll give my thoughts on this. I'm gonna try to keep this video short. This guy says that most Texans would not be happy in Australia. And going into guns, Texans consider owning guns their God-given obligation to society, meaning that they love guns, they love owning guns. And Aussies don't hate guns necessarily. They just don't see the reason for everyone to have so many. Well, I'm gonna throw some facts here. Back in 1996 in Port Arthur, a guy went on a mass shooting, killing a lot of people. In Australia, the politicians in Australia and the government in general saw this, and they did something about this. They created strict gun laws, and they had a buyback program where people gave their guns back, and Australia destroyed some of the guns. And after the buyback program and the strict gun laws was implemented in Australia, Australia didn't see a lot of mass shootings after that. It was reduced. So that's facts right there. And people in Texas who will move to Australia, a lot of them the gun owners love their guns. They believe in open carry. They believe them having the right to carry a gun and defending themselves. Like for instance, somewhere in Texas, a car thief tried to steal a car from someone, and he was caught and he ran away, and the owner pulled out the gun and was shooting at this person, hitting them, injuring him. And I heard that I didn't know what happened to this guy. This is from someone who told this to my dad. The guy ended up in the hospital. And I think my dad told me he died. I mean, this guy stole a car from me a long time ago, and he was never caught. I don't know if the police caught him or not. My dad told me he died, and also then my dad said that he was in the hospital. He was in terrible shape. So I don't know what's going on. So yeah, Texans believe in having guns just like everybody else, just like all the gun nuts here in America. They believe in owning a gun and protecting themselves from someone if someone tries to attack them or their children, and they just shoot at them. So yeah. And in Australia, I never been to Australia, but I heard some things about Australia. I think that Aussies own guns, but they don't own as much as like here in the U.S. because here in the U.S., when a mass shooting happens, you got some people saying that, oh, we need more guns. Guns are needed. And that's just crazy. Like the U.S. is just basically swimming in guns and bullets. Like, and you got people in Australia said that, not in Australia. You got people in Canada said that it's the guns. I mean, there's too many guns. I mean, there's more guns than people. And the politicians aren't doing anything to stop these mass shootings by implementing like gun control or what Australia is doing. Because, well, what they do in Australia, I think here in America, they're not going to take that because, they believe in the Second Amendment and I should own a gun. I should do whatever I want because of freedom and the Constitution and liberty. So, okay. So let me continue here. Okay. Church. A large part of Texans' social lives is centered around church. You can hardly overstate how important church is to most Texans. It's really quite similar to how Middle Eastern Muslim nations incorporate religion in their lives. Aussies are most evangelicals and Catholic, but not devoted. Aussies don't think about church when it's time for baptisms, weddings, and funerals. Yeah, well, I don't know how it is in Australia when it comes to going to church, but here in Texas, there's like way, way, way too many churches here. You got a lot of religious maniacs here, religious nut jobs, and one person who commented on one of my videos, I'm assuming is from Texas. He commented on my video about Doc G. Tell me about, oh, Doc G changed, and how can you accuse him of going crazy, and you're the one who's going crazy? I think he's been watching one of my videos where I've been saying funny stuff and doing funny things, making my point, and he's accusing me of going crazy. Basically, he's gaslighting me. Then after that, he tells me, oh, where you're at it, go to church and give your life to God. God bless you. So, yeah, and I don't think, well, I've never been to Australia, but, I bet that people in Australia don't act like people in Texas. Well, going back to how many churches are here, there's like way, way, way too many churches. You got churches competing with other churches. And it's kind of like a cult, kind of like, and you got like, David Koresh, a lot of these religious wackos here, and it's funny, when it comes to like people lining up at food banks, and you got people living in poverty, people are being homeless, people are dying because they lack basic health care, and they can't afford health care, and you got people who are working and they have their health care tied to their job. If they lose their job or they quit their job, they poof, lose their health care. And you got these religious maniacs, not all of them, not all religious people in Texas are bad. You got some who are conservative, who are basically fascists. You got like fascist conservative people who don't care about the homeless, people who living in poverty are basically, just fascist people disguised, fascist and conservative people disguised as Christians. And church, going to church here in Texas, going to church every Sunday, is basically like, the Saudi Arabia of Christianity. Because there's so many churches here in Texas, and it's like that all over the U.S. as well. But seeing what this person said, that Aussies are mostly evangelicals. I can't pronounce that. Evangelicals and Catholics, or they're mostly Catholic. I'm gonna say that, but not devoted. And he said that Aussies only think about church when it's time for baptism, weddings, and funerals. Yeah, I mean, I watched television out of Australia. They don't go overboard on religion. They don't act weird and religious. They don't do that. They don't. But saying that Aussies only think about church when it's time for baptism, weddings, and funerals, which makes sense and it's normal. But I guess to a typical Texan, white or black or Hispanic, who are religious maniacs, it's not normal. Okay, driving. Part 1. Texans think nothing of driving 2 blocks to the grocery store to buy 1 loaf of bread. Texans only think it's normal to drive 8 hours for an overnight trip. Aussies walk mostly everywhere they go, or take the public transport. Aussies would think it's weird and wasteful to drive 8 hours, spend the night, and then drive back the next day. Driving part 2. Texans also drive fast, very fast. Speed limits in Texas allow for fast driving, and Texans think it's perfectly natural and acceptable to drive 10 miles per hour, or like 15 or 18 kilometers per hour, over the speed limit. Aussie speed limits are much, much slower, and Aussies adhere to them strictly. If you routinely drive over the speed limit in Australia, you'll soon collect so many Demetrics and lose your license. Okay, I can add some to this. In the state of Texas, which is also all over the USA, um, the speed limit is measured in miles per hour, which is, well, Texas and the rest of the U.S. use the imperial system, and in Australia they use the metric system. Okay, in Texas and all over the USA, people drive on the right, as in Australia, people drive on the left. And in Australia, people have a lot of in Australia, roundabouts exist. So Texans, if everybody in the state of Texas live in Australia, they will hate the metric system and they will hate the roundabouts. This guy doesn't mention roundabouts in the metric system. Okay, like, a Texan won't bother using the metric system. Like, for instance, okay, the speed limit on a dual carriageway, which is a British terminology for divided highway, that speed limit on that dual carriageway or divided highway will be 110 or 120 or 130 kilometers per hour. 110 kilometers per hour would be 70 miles per hour. 120 kilometers per hour would be 75 miles per hour. And 130 kilometers per hour would be 80 miles per hour. They'll see a metric speed limit sign, a standard metric speed limit sign, and they'll think they won't understand it. They'll think it's way too fast. But in Texas, drivers drive way too fast. They drive like maniacs. They'll cut people off when they're like overtaking them or passing them in the passing lane on a freeway or a dual carriageway or divided highway. They'll drive behind them real close to them, which is tailgating. So, people in Texas, some Texas drivers drive like maniacs. And, and Texans love to drive, and they don't like to walk everywhere like they do in Australia and take public transportation, like taking a bus, a train, or a tram. They don't believe in that. They believe in driving everywhere in a car. That's what they believe in. In a car, yeah, they love their cars. They love cars and huge, gigantic pickup trucks. So Texans who drive crazy and drive improperly, they don't believe in lane discipline. And they're not excellent drivers compared to drivers in Europe. Drivers in Europe, when it comes to driving, drivers in Europe are kicking the asses of Texas drivers and American drivers in the USA. Because these people are bad drivers. They're poor drivers, and they don't care about other people's safety, and they don't care about their own safety. In Europe, people care about other people's safety. They look out for one another on the road. Texans, some of them don't do that, Some drivers in Texas are courteous drivers. Some of them aren't. And this guy talk about if you collect too many demerits, like get a lot of points on your driver's license, or get a point on your driver's license, you lose your license. Well, I'm gonna say this. Well, here in the United Kingdom, if you drive crazy like people in Texas drive like the crazy drivers here in Texas, and not the not the drivers who drive normally, who drive respectively. You'll lose your license. You'll be banned in the UK. You have to take a driving test. You have to go through driving education for like 2 to 3 years. And the 2 to 3 years are up, you get your driver's license back. But in the 3 years, you're a banned driver. You go to court and you're found guilty of how you operate a motor vehicle on the British motorways. You will lose your license. And plus, for speeding, they have speed cameras, and they exist in France and other countries, and in other countries in Europe. I don't know about Australia, but if you caught driving fast or eating or drinking, if you get caught by these speed cameras, they will take a picture of the license plate, and they will mail you a ticket. And the fines are not reasonable, and they're unexpected, and they can hurt. So okay. Let me finish this up. Taxes. Texans hate taxes. And in any politician who suggests not only raising them, but also not cutting them, can't get elected. Aussies don't love taxes, but they see them as necessary in the metrication to get the programs they depend on. Okay, government. Texans have no use for government. They think the government should deliver the mail, pay the Marines, and leave everything else alone. Aussies believe government is a valuable part of society and expect government can and will solve their problems. Unions. Aussie unions have shaped the fundamental identity of Aussie manufacturing and heavy industry, and you can't work in those areas without being part of one. If you say the word union in Texas, you're in real danger and get put down. Competition. Texans win no matter what. In Texas, winning is everything, and it's not enough. Let me start over again, folks. Competition. Texans win no matter what. In Texas, winning is everything, and it's not enough simply to win, but you have to emulate your competition and then brag about it for the next 50 years. In Australia, the game's the thing. Aussies enjoy winning, but they enjoy participating more, and they treat their opponents more respectably. Okay, he says Texans hate taxes and Aussies don't love taxes. Okay, let me break this down. Okay, this is I guess this guy is conservative. He's talking about conservative Texans. So this is what this is about. Texans who are basically just a bunch of conservatives. Because this is what this post is all about. But I assume that Texans who are not conservative will hate this as well. I don't know. He says that Texans hate taxes. Well, it's like this, in Australia, Australia has a universal healthcare system, which is known simply as Medicare. Like other countries, Australia, like other countries that have a different form or version of universal healthcare. Australia don't spend a lot of money on healthcare. They spend less on healthcare and cover more people. But they have problems with their healthcare system as well. But is it better than the healthcare in Texas and the rest of the United States? Yes. And also, this guy says Aussies don't like taxes, but they see them as necessary in the metrification to get the programs they depend on. Yeah, you got some people in countries like Canada and others complain about high taxes, but when it comes to universal health care and programs for the poor, it makes sense. It's like this. Actually, Texans hate taxes. Well, yeah, a lot of people don't like taxes, but you got to pay your taxes. But when it comes to taxes, in the U.S., the tax system is broken. It is in favor of millionaires and billionaires and huge multinational corporations. If the tax system was fixed up and was fair and was fair, and wealthy people and corporations pay more in taxes while the middle class and the poor pay less in taxes, just have a tax system is where if you make less, you pay less. If you make more, you pay more. These Texans who hate taxes, rich conservatives and conservatives who don't know any better, who are poor, will just hate it. But in countries like Australia, they like it. And it's the same in France and in other countries. They have a progressive, fair tax system. And this guy talks about government. In government, Texans have no use for government. They think the government should deliver the mail, pay the Marines, and leave everything else alone. Well, here in Texas, the government is doing something that's wrong, under Governor Greg Abbott. He lifted the mask mandate, pulled out a anti-voting law, voter suppression, where it's hard for poor, rural, minority people to vote. Basically, the anti-voting law is basically it's unfair and it's also very racist to black people, like suppressing the vote, like voter suppression, which led to conservative politicians in Texas and other conservative states to win. If you have voter suppression, they will win. And you got gerrymandering. Gerrymandering is illegal, and conservative politicians in Texas and other countries, not in other countries, but conservative politicians in Texas and in other states and here in the USA engage in gerrymandering by rewriting voting districts that they won, and they do that so they can win and stay in power. Voter suppression and gerrymandering, that's how they win. And talking about government, government, Texans have no use for government. Well, the government is used to keep everything together. But if you have a bunch of crooked conservative politicians and crooked neoliberal democratic politicians, the government is not going to be for the people. But if the government was fair and for the people, then the government will be seen as something that's good. Wasting money on the military industrial complex, the prison complex, and and being for like huge multinational corporations. Yeah, I guess that's what this Texan or Texans believe in. They have no use for government and just believe in the government should deliver the mail, pay the military, and leave everything else alone. Yeah, leave everything else alone. Like, okay, leave millionaires and billionaires alone. Let them rig the tax system. Let them get away with not paying their fair share in taxes and just spend more money on the military industrial complex and just letting like infrastructure crumble and everything just fall apart in this country and not deal with gun control and just believe in more mass shootings mean more just give people more guns, which is not going to solve anything. So that's the Texas logic there. Unions. Yeah, unions should be fair. Unions should be fair to people who work at a job, collective bargaining. If they get sick, they should leave their job and go home and recover and go see the doctor. They shouldn't be just working, and they get sick and they make other people get sick and they die on the job. Yeah. So this guy says Texans win no matter what. Well, everybody doesn't win in Texas and all over the United States of America. You got some winners and losers, The winners are the millionaires and billionaires and huge multinational corporations, the NRA. They are the winners. The losers are the middle class, the poor, the homeless, and people living in poverty. They are the losers. But in Australia and in France and other countries that believe in taking care of their people, they believe everybody everybody is the winner. Everybody is the winner. A tax system and a healthcare system and programs that benefit everybody. Everybody is the winner in Australia. Nobody isn't the winner in Texas. The wealthy, the powerful, and the connected are the winners in Texas and all over the United States. And the losers are the poor. So that's reality. So these so-called Texans who gonna hate living in Australia are basically conservatives, and you got some liberal people and homebody people who don't want to travel and just stay where they are and just live where they are for the rest of their lives. Those are the type of people who don't want to move to Australia or move to any other country. And to the homebody people, the homebodies just don't understand or just don't see just how bad things are in the U.S. or in Texas. They don't care, I guess someone who dies from health care from a homebody's perspective is, oh my God, like you're just not going to be around anymore. You're not. People who love you, you're not going to be around to see those people who love you, who care about you, and those people are going to miss you. So those homebody people are just stuck in the box and just don't want to look outside their borders and see how things work. But these conservative Texans and these conservative Americans, they look outside those borders, but they don't look outside their borders. They just make a lot of lies and bull crap about how things are in other countries. But reality is, when it comes to health care, a fair tax system, and helping people who are less fortunate. To be honestly, Australia, France, and those other countries that care about their citizens, those countries are kicking the ass of America. They are kicking America's ass. They're kicking America's ass every single day because they blow America away on just about everything. Okay, I'm going to compare Texas people with Australian people. Okay, Texas people are weird, they're crazy, they're shady, they'll walk all over you. They have a superiority complex where they think they're better than you. They're crazy, they're stupid, they're a bunch of weirdos, they're religious maniacs, and they're assholes. Then you got the educated people here that will talk down, to you, that will put you down and be rude to you as they talk to you with their knowledge. I mean, they just abuse their knowledge by putting people down. And some of them are gaslighters. Some of them are very stiff and boring. Some of them are full of it. I mean, in a previous video, I talked about this. A woman at this fast food restaurant in Liberty City, Texas, which is a Dairy Queen. She accused me of yelling at her, not yelling at her, but she accused me of screaming at her and being rude to her. And the truth is, I was ordering my food. I tried to order my food one or two times, and she interrupted me the first time, and she interrupted me the second time. Okay, how can she say that I'm being rude to her and screaming at her, which I didn't do? I'll just say being rude. How can you say I'm being rude to you, and you're the one who's being rude to me by interrupting me when I'm talking, and you saying you're trying to do your job, make sure you don't screw up the order. Okay, you're accusing me of being rude to you and screaming at you, which I didn't do, and I wasn't yelling at you or screaming at you, and I wasn't being rude. How can you say that I was doing all of that, which I wasn't, and you were interrupting me one or two times? I mean, interrupting someone where they're talking, that's being rude. I mean, and a lot of people in Texas do that. Not all of them, but I know it's like, when they interrupt somebody and just talk and say what they want to say, they don't realize what they did. They don't say this. Oh, I'm sorry, I interrupted you. I'm sorry. Go right ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. So what do you have to say? They don't say that. But I guess them interrupting someone and cutting them dead in a sentence is not rude, but they gaslight you, and some of them do this. They gaslight you, and they make you out as being rude, and saying that you're screaming at someone and ranting and raving, and you're not doing any of that. That's gaslighting. You got some people in Texas that will gaslight you to the moon. Australians, Aussies, some of them, I heard stories about them that they're laid back people. I mean, they're cool, calm, and collected, and they're laid back. I mean, they say that you see that in the police officers, the citizens, politicians, But in a Parliament House, in Canberra, it's very heated. They'll shout and argue, because they have a parliamentary system which they inherited from the United Kingdom as a colony of Great Britain. Okay, the Texas state capitol in Austin, here in Texas, the USA. It is like very crazy. It's crazy and weird, but it's very dead and silence, very, very boring, goddamn boring. It's like that. It's like that among politicians in the U.S. Capitol building. So yeah, um, you know what, if I have a choice on where I want to live, even though I don't want to live in Australia, but I have no interest in living in Australia, but I want to visit Australia. I'll choose Australia over Texas, and yeah, Texans. A lot of people in Texas, doesn't matter what their political background is, or they're not political, or they're just regular normal people or homebodies. If you put these people in Australia, I mean, they're not gonna like it. They will hate it. I mean, they can't own all the guns, because if they want a gun, they got to go through a lot of red tape and yellow tape to get a gun. They have to go through a lot of stuff to get a gun, and they don't like that. And they'll hate the metric system. They'll hate the left-hand traffic driving laws in Australia. Because in Australia they are a left-hand traffic country, because they drive on the left, and they're not a right-hand traffic country like here in the U.S. So yeah, they'll hate the universal healthcare system, Medicare. They'll hate the taxes. I mean, they have a high minimum wage in Australia. Like a person at a Hungry Jack's will make more money compared to someone who works at a Burger King here in the U.S. or anywhere in Texas. They'll make less because the minimum wage is ridiculously low. So these so-called Texans who will hate Australia are basically conservatives. Or you got some who aren't conservatives who probably hate it, and you got some Texans who will like it. I mean, Texans are a mixed bag, People who say that Texans will hate Australia are basically conservatives. And the ones who are like neoliberal, or who probably won't like it, and the ones who are liberal, progressive, will like it, will like Australia. There's some things that they will like. There's some things that they won't like. There's some things that they're gonna like in Australia, and there's some things that they won't like about Australia, and that's the ones who aren't conservative. The ones who are conservative will hate everything. And the gun nuts, who believe in to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. And that won't fly in Australia. And plus, and an Australian said it best when it comes to gun control and mass shootings. At least we won't have a heap. At least we don't have a heap of mass shootings. At least we don't have a heap of mass shootings. Texas people, just like the other parts of America, Americans, will bring out the worst in you. They will turn you into a monster, by making fun of you, cutting you dead in a sentence, bashing you, lying to you, just keep talking to you, like just cutting you dead in a sentence. When you try to respond to them, they don't let you say anything, and it will make some people angry. It will make them angry, and they'll lose it. The women. As a man, if you have interest in a woman, if you ask a woman out, she'll reject you, call you sexually frustrated, and call you a creep, a weirdo, and pedophile, and a pervert, and drive you to go on a mass shooting and shoot, kill people, turn the gun on yourself, shoot and kill yourself, or worse, get shot and killed by police. So, yeah, that's what will happen, because it's so toxic here in the state of Texas and all over the U.S. In Australia, no, that doesn't exist. I don't think anybody's gonna drive you to do the things that I just mentioned. When Americans drive you to do those things, that doesn't exist in Australia. And someone said that I heard a Canadian says this. I'm not gonna say his name. Do you think shy people, quiet people, and people with a mental illness, you think they don't exist in other countries? You think that they exist just here in the U.S.? And those people exist in those other countries. I mean, but they got help. They get helped. They are living in a less toxic society compared to the U.S. I mean, and in the U.S., their lives will be ruined. They'll be destroyed. They'll be an outcast by the toxicity of this country, of the U.S., and especially in Texas. And countries like Australia, France, and other countries in Europe, throw in New Zealand, that doesn't exist. I mean, they'll get over a woman saying no to them. If it's a guy, they want a woman. They'll give up, like, people treating them badly. They'll get up and move on. I was made fun of about a comment I made about a Eurotunnel tunnel being built from Australia to New Zealand, and someone from New Zealand bashed me and laughed at me over this idea, and it didn't bother me. I just let it go. I got up and moved on, because it wasn't nothing. But, if I get this like all the time here in the U.S., yeah, it'll bother me. It'll tear me down. So, that's the difference, So, if you're lonely, if you're a lonely guy, there's no need for you to be an incel, sexually frustrated, and a celibate or whatever, a black pill man, whatever. There's no need for you to be that, because if you're in a country like Australia, I don't know, New Zealand, France, countries in Europe, I mean, you have a 50-50 chance of finding that special woman in your life. You have self-confidence, you'll feel good about yourself. And there's no need for you to go around and saying negative things on social media and be like Elliot Rodger here in the USA. There's no need for you to be like that. If you live in a country like Australia, you have a better quality of life, living standard. You have health care guaranteed to you. It won't be tied to your job. You'll make more on your job. I mean, like in France, it doesn't matter if you work part-time or full-time. You'll still make more money. You'll have all the programs that will support you and help you out. And you'll be taken better care of in a country that cares about you. Unlike the USA, like I say, countries like France, Australia, New Zealand, they are kicking the asses. They are kicking the ass of the United States of America on just about every single thing. They are mopping the floor with America. And they are. Okay, here's some things that they don't do in Australia that is done in Texas. Let's see, they don't do this in Australia. They don't tell you to jump the queue and tell you to go ahead of them while you're queuing up at a store or a grocery store to pay for your things. And no one isn't going to pay for your groceries for you by pulling out a big stack of money and smiling and talking to the cashier and telling the cashier, ring up his things, I'll buy this for him. That's not going to happen. The government didn't leave them like suffering in a nasty in a nasty snowstorm. Um, People don't gaslight each other. People don't tear people down and bring out the worst of them and make them out as the bad person by running their mouths, not letting them say anything, and accusing them. Hey, you get angry, you get mad, you be talking, you be getting angry, you be blowing up. Yeah, but oh yeah, you be blowing up, you be getting angry, and walking off and running their mouths, which is weird. And religious people are not gonna tell you to he lost it, but how can you say he lost it and you're the one who lost it? And while you're at it, go to church and give your life to God. God bless you. Yeah, and they don't do any of these things at all. And yeah, going back to what this Canadian said, do you think that people who are quiet, who are shy, doesn't exist in other countries? Um, what he's saying and talking about well, here in America, they talk about people who go on mass shootings as quiet, alone, and shy and awkward. Yeah, yeah, and you know that's a tired argument, and I don't care for that. And that Canadian who talked about, oh, do you think people in other countries who are shy and quiet don't exist? And they do exist in those other countries. But here's the thing, I'm gonna say this again. They are. I mean, they're in a less toxic society where they can just move on and just live their lives normally without getting angry and losing it and grabbing a gun and going on mass shootings. And plus, they can't get a gun. I mean, because in those countries outside of America, like Canada, Australia, and others, I'm gonna say Australia. I'm gonna say this again. They had to go through a lot of red tape, a lot of paperwork to get access to a gun. All that, in Australia, saying that I just want a gun just for protection. That's not gonna fly in Australia. That's not enough. So yeah, it seems to me that Australia is way better than living in Texas, and these Texans who are educated, who bash people because they don't know anything and bash other countries and bash people's view on other countries, saying that all they talk about is the healthcare, healthcare, healthcare. Well, yeah, the healthcare is good in those other countries, but it's not about the healthcare in those other countries. It's about people treating each other right and people treating each other the right way, and treating them like human beings, and not condemning them and calling them weirdo creeps, pedophiles, and saying that they're sexually frustrated and oh, he's quiet, he's shy. If they're quiet and shy out in countries outside of America, which is Australia, um, they can break out of that and be talkable and they can have confidence and they can feel good about themselves. They can break out of that. But here in the US, you got dysfunctional families and a dysfunctional society that takes someone who's quiet and shy and awkward and turn them into a monster by turning them into a monster. And they're the reason why these people morph into monsters. And you got way too many guns in the U.S. And I think that a buyback program and getting rid of destroying guns, having people giving up their guns in the U.S. isn't going to happen, especially in Texas. It's not going to happen because people love their guns and they believe guns is the answer to everything. They think that mass shootings, mass shooting drills and guns are the answer to mass shootings, and they're not. Mass shooting drills and giving people more guns to take on mass shooters which is people with a mental illness and racist people, that's not gonna solve anything, And when it comes to gun control, when it comes to gun control, countries like Canada and Australia, Japan and others got it right, and the U.S. got it wrong. Yeah, and what worked in Australia won't with the buyback program won't work here in the U.S. because you got the NRA, you got the black market, you got way, way, way too many gun nuts. So that's the problem. You got these gun nuts who always talk about the U.S. Constitution, the Second Amendment, and freedom and liberty and guns and God and Jesus. So again, and I have no interest in living in Australia. I would like to visit Australia. And I know these Texas people are going to hate Australia, and screw them, because those people are lost. And I think Australia, even though it has problems just like any other country, it's way, way, way better than the U.S. It's also way better than Canada, hands down. Because you won't have any problems talking to Aussies and forming friendships with them because I think they're sociable people. I heard that they're laid back, they're cool, calm, and collective. But you gonna have some snobs and stuck up people and some clowns here and there, bad people here and there. But it's not as nearly as bad as I say here in the U.S. and Canada. Yeah, one more thing on Texans who don't like to walk and they like to drive around in their cars. Um, that's like that in the rest of the United States. I mean, Americans don't like to walk; they like to drive. And a car is a item where you need to get around in the country. I mean, in Australia, Texans really don't need to drive around in a car because if they live in a city like Sydney and Melbourne and those other cities in Australia, there's no need for them to drive around. They can walk, they can take the bus, they can take the tram, they can ride a bicycle. It's like that in countries in Europe. But I think they wouldn't like that. They just prefer to drive around in their cars and drive like Speed Racer. Just drive super, super fast, you know. And again, if they drive on the freeway slash motorways and dual carriageways in Australia, I mean, they're going to hate the metric system because Australia is a metric system country. They're going to be driving in kilometers per hour, not miles per hour, which is in the imperial system. Yeah. Texans, if the entire state of Texas, everybody who lives in the entire population of Texas lives in Australia. I mean, I mean, if they all live in Australia, they're gonna make fools out of themselves by the way they drive. The ones that drive like maniacs. They're not gonna understand how roundabouts work, and they're not gonna understand the metric system, and they're gonna hate the metric system. And the courteousness and the politeness that they do here, that's kind of odd. Their strange culture where they say yes ma'am, yes sir, no ma'am, be all courteous, and they're gonna gaslight the Aussies and all the weird stuff that they do. They're basically gonna make complete jackasses out of themselves. Yeah, they're gonna make themselves look like fools in Australia. Looks like this video is too long, so gotta get deeper into this subject matter. So this is a special occasion video. Alright, that's all I gotta say in this video. Cheers!